You bought the more expensive gift, not because you wanted to, because you couldn't afford not to. You dressed up for a gathering you didn't care about. You paid for a meal you couldn't really afford. You smiled when someone criticized you in public and told yourself it was just being polite. It wasn't. You were protecting an asset, one you'd been building since the day you were born into a community that was watching. Its name is Chemyeon, and the moment you understand it, Korea stops being confusing and starts making perfect sense. This is K-Logic, and today we decode the economics of face. Every society has a currency. In the West, it is largely individual achievement, what you have built, what you have earned, what you have proven on your own terms. The balance sheet is personal, the audit is internal. In Korea, the primary currency is something far more complex, far more social, and far more demanding to maintain. It is called Chemyeon, and it has no direct English translation. Face is the closest approximation, but it dramatically understates what the system actually does. Chemyeon is not just about avoiding embarrassment. It is a sophisticated reputation capital framework, a real-time social credit score that every Korean citizen carries, maintains, and protects with the same vigilance a CFO applies to a company's balance sheet. From K-Logic's perspective, Chemyeon is the operating system's reputation layer, the protocol that governs how individuals are perceived, valued, and trusted within the community network. If Nunchi was the social GPS that reads the room, and Jung was the emotional adhesive that binds people together, Chemyeon is the standardized uniform every node in the network must wear to remain a credible participant in the system. To lose Chemyeon is not to feel bad, it is to lose access, to be downgraded, to have your trust capital, the invisible currency that opens doors, secures favors, and guarantees your position in the communal network, suddenly devalued. And unlike financial capital, Chemyeon cannot be rebuilt quickly. It degrades publicly, in front of witnesses, and the recovery timeline is measured not in weeks, but in years of consistent, visible reputation management. This is why Koreans invest in Chemyeon the way Western professionals invest in their credit scores, not out of vanity, out of rational system logic. The expensive wedding envelope is not generosity, it is a deposit. The designer handbag is not fashion, it is collateral. The formal bow is not just courtesy, it is a transaction confirmation. Every social gesture in Korea is simultaneously a cultural act and a financial instrument. Once you see the balance sheet, you cannot unsee it. To understand how Chemyeon actually operates, you need to understand its three core execution protocols. Protocol 1. Public validation as system input. Chemyeon is not self-generated, it cannot be declared, it can only be confirmed by others. This is the fundamental architectural difference between Western self-esteem and Korean Chemyeon. In the Western model, confidence is an internal state, something you build within yourself and project outward. In the Korean model, social standing is an external calculation, something the community assigns based on visible, consistent performance of the correct signals. This is why Koreans invest so heavily in the visible markers of status. The luxury car parked outside a modest apartment, the designer brand worn to a casual gathering, the generous cash gift at a colleague's wedding that slightly exceeds what was expected. These are not irrational behaviors, they are system inputs, data being fed into the community's shared reputation algorithm to generate a favorable output, confirmed Chemyeon. Protocol 2. Loss is catastrophic and asymmetric. Chemyeon does not degrade gradually, it collapses. A single public humiliation, being corrected in front of peers, having a financial failure become visible, receiving criticism in a group setting, can instantly erase years of carefully accumulated reputation capital. This asymmetry explains behaviors that seem extreme to outside observers. The Korean executive who resigns rather than accepts a demotion is not being dramatic. He is executing a rational Chemyeon calculation. A visible demotion permanently damages his reputation capital across his entire network. A quiet resignation preserves the narrative. The loss is controlled. The recovery is possible. Protocol 3. Chemyeon operates as a communal regulatory system. This is the most misunderstood dimension of Chemyeon. Western observers often read it as social pressure, conformity enforced by judgment. But K-Logic reads it as something more sophisticated, a distributed governance protocol that maintains social order without requiring external enforcement. The logic of not wanting to be ashamed in front of others controls individual behavior more powerfully than laws. Korean society has historically had periods of weak institutional infrastructure, colonial rule, war, rapid industrialization under authoritarian systems. Chemyeon functioned as the community's self-regulating mechanism during those periods, enforcing standards of behavior through social consequence rather than legal penalty. The result is a society where order is maintained not by fear of the law, but by the far more intimate fear of communal judgment, which, from a systems perspective, is actually a more efficient governance algorithm because it operates 24 hours a day in every social context without requiring any external enforcement at all. Every system has a shadow. Chemyeon's shadow is the price paid by those who cannot afford to maintain it, and the distortions created by a society that is collectively agreed to prioritize appearance over reality. The statistics are not comfortable. Korea consistently ranks among the highest in the world for household debt relative to income. A significant portion of that debt is not driven by poverty, it is driven by Chemyeon maintenance, the social obligation to spend at a level that confirms one's position in the network, regardless of whether the underlying financial reality supports it. The Korean wedding industry generates billions annually, not primarily because Koreans value marriage ceremonies more than other cultures. It is because the wedding is the single most visible Chemyeon event in a person's life, the moment when your entire social network assembles to assess your standing. The venue, the dress, the menu, the guest list, every element is simultaneously a personal choice and a public declaration of reputation capital. The same logic drives Korea's world-leading private education expenditure. The pressure to send children to the best hagwons, private academies that can cost thousands of dollars monthly, is not purely about academic outcome. It is about the Chemyeon of the parents. A child's educational investment is a visible signal of the family's seriousness, their values, their position in the network. To spend less than the neighborhood standard is to risk a quiet but devastating reputation downgrade. And yet, here is what the pure efficiency analysis misses. Chemyeon, at its deepest level, is not about status competition. It is about dignity. The Korean concept of Chemyeon shares its roots with the word che, body, and myeon, face or surface. It is literally the face of the body. The visible self that you present to the world is proof that you are a person worthy of respect. In a society that has survived colonial erasure, war, and compressed modernization, a society that was systematically stripped of its dignity within living memory, the fierce protection of face is not vanity. It is the insistence that I exist, I matter, I am worthy of being seen. Chemyeon is Korea's collective answer to centuries of being told otherwise. Chemyeon is not a uniquely Korean problem, it is a uniquely Korean solution. Every human society needs a mechanism for maintaining social trust without constant contractual enforcement. Every community needs a shared standard for how its members present themselves to each other. Every culture has some version of the invisible ledger, the unspoken accounting of who is trustworthy, who is serious, who deserves access to the network's resources and support. Korea's version is more visible, more demanding, and more precisely calibrated than most.
And that precision has costs: the debt, the pressure, the exhausting performance of perpetual reputation management. But the traveler who arrives in Korea understanding Chemyeon experiences something entirely different from the one who doesn't. The host who insists on paying the entire bill is not showing off, they're making a deposit in a relationship they value. The colleague who dresses formally for a casual Friday meeting is not being stiff, they're communicating that you were worth the effort. The elder who asks probing questions about your career and family at a first meeting is not being intrusive, they're running the standard onboarding protocol for a new node entering the network. Every gesture that seemed excessive becomes precise. Every behavior that seemed irrational becomes logical. The invisible balance sheet becomes readable. And perhaps most importantly, the traveler begins to understand that Chemyeon, at its core, is a system designed around a single belief, that how we appear to each other matters, that the effort we make to show respect, to dress appropriately, to give generously, to speak carefully, is not performance, it is care. In a world increasingly optimized for frictionless digital interaction, where relationships are managed through screens, where effort is minimized, where the social cost of carelessness approaches zero, Chemyeon carries a message the modern world urgently needs to hear. The way you show up for others is a statement about how much they matter to you. Korea has been making that statement at considerable personal cost for centuries. K-Logic will continue decoding the invisible systems that make Korea one of the most logically fascinating societies on the planet. Next time, we decode the algorithm behind Korea's most misunderstood obsession, education fever, and the hidden logic of a society that treats knowledge as the ultimate Chemyeon upgrade.